All right, I think we're on. Well, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today on Living in the Texas Hill Country. We have Luke Howell on. He is with Omega Outfitters, almost said exotics, Omega Outfitters. And Luke, do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So we start we started Omega Outfitters and Omega Exotics, which is relatively the same business. 4 years ago, myself and my business partner Brent, and we've both been hunting and spent a lot of time in the wildlife. I want to say industry, but just out in the woods, and grew up in this sport. Learning about all these different animals, and it's kind of our both of our passions and things that we enjoy. Not necessarily just harvesting animals, but being around them and learning about them, and just I think at this point I get more enjoyment out of watching them and taking pictures of them. It's really kind of cool just to see all the different species.
Well, and I mean, here in Texas, I mean, we were talking about this before we started, I mean, there's so many, and I feel like I'm not gonna say every day, but I feel like every year there's something new that just kind of shows up, or you hear a ranch has, some sort of a new exotic.
Hmm.
And so this is something that, because these are not native to Texas, you kind of just never know what you're going to get. Generally, they're behind. I think a lot of these exotics are behind high fences, but sometimes things happen. You have
Yep.
fences wash out, fences go down, and the ranch doesn't realize it. And then these guys get out into the landscape. So we feel like it'd be really good for y'all to have an idea as to um, maybe have a little bit of a background if you see something weird, that it's not necessarily a like a big I was trying to think of like some sort of like a weird like four-legged creature that people might see it and not know what it is, like a cryptid. Anyway, see, I told you I was going to dive down a rabbit hole. I did it already. So so I guess, well, let's start with some of the like really, really, I'll say the common exotics that a lot of people are going to know about.
Yep.
And then maybe, I guess maybe a good format is talk about an exotic that somebody that a lot of people know about, and then maybe some exotics that they might get confused with. So like an axis, for example. We'll start with an axis. I think everyone knows what an axis looks like, but
Sure.
for those who don't, what can you describe an axis for
Yeah. So, well, where I'll start at is, like, when we say the word exotic, what that's referring to is it's not a native animal, right? It's not native to Texas, and it might be native to Oklahoma, or it might be native to Montana, or whatever the case. But we're talking about specifically exotics in Texas, meaning it's not born here. It might be born on
In
a
somebody's
high
pasture.
fence. Right, right. But these aren't animals that are exactly that, native to Texas. They were brought in, or they were introduced by some wealthy man or woman, whether it was last year or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. At some point, they were introduced to Texas, via trailer or whatever the case, and that means that they're not, with them being exotic, they're not protected, they're not regulated by the state of Texas. So unlike a whitetail, or unlike a mule deer or a turkey or dove or ducks, these aren't things that the state really has any control over. It's just a wild animal that may or may not be inside a fence, but ultimately they're still wild animals, and they're could be from Asia, they could be from Africa, or wherever they're from. They're just really cool, things that we in Texas, and I don't know that it's like this, you know, anywhere else, but I feel like in Texas there's almost been a full industry created just around these specific animals, and it's a really neat thing.
And I think that's a very good point to make. And actually, so technically in Texas, um, exotics are categorized as livestock. So like Luke said, is that there's no, I mean, you can hunt, you do have to have a valid hunting license,
Yeah.
but you can hunt them 365. You can hunt as many as you want. There is really and truly no regulation in regards to these guys. But yes, I think that was a very good like place to start. Was, you know, I was just ready to like dive into like talk about the animals, but we have to talk about like the really important upfront stuff first. But yeah, so I guess if you want, we will now dive into
Yeah, we can dive into it now. So I think that you know, most common, especially here in the hill country, what most people are going to see is you know, you're going to see axis, you're going to see black buck. Occasionally you'll see some fallow or some aoudad. The further west you go, you might see some scimitar oryx. Occasionally you could see some sika, and then regionally, you know, more south or more west, you'll run into some nilgai or some elk, um, possibly some red deer, and then, you know, random species we were talking about before we got on. Random species of now swine, you know, whether it's javelinas or warthogs now. There's a lot going on here, but I would say the most common is going to be axis black buck, aoudad, and potentially fallow or oryx. Those are going to be what I think most people, if they're, you know, sitting in their yard here in Central Texas, whether it's, you know, Kerrville or Rock Springs or Bulverde, wherever it is, there's a potential to see axis oryx black buck. That's the most common, I feel like, here.
Yeah, no, and I would definitely agree upon that. And I think so, I mean, Axis, they have those like, first of all, I think they have like one of the most like beautiful hides, I think, of just about any exotic. I know like they make purses out of them and pillows, and I know like gun case. I mean, pretty well anything you could possibly think of, I think people make Axis hides
Yeah.
out of.
Yeah, they're definitely the most, as far as game goes, they're the most sought after here in Texas, and whether it's a hunting trip or a live sale or whatever the case, the market for axis deer as a whole is drastically changed within the past 5 years. You know, a few years ago, go, you could literally go down to a sale barn and buy one for a couple $1,000s. I was looking this morning, they have them axis buck that is just your typical deer. He's going for $8,000 to $10,000. I mean, the market is drastically changed, and it's because of the drive recently for everybody who wants to have and be able to look at or be able to harvest an axis deer.
It helps that they're really delicious too.
It
I
does.
mean, they're not bad eating
So
either.
It does.
They are very delicious. Um, but so they're not our only spotted exotic that we have here. And there's a couple other ones that I know like a lot of people could get them mistaken
Yeah.
for. So what are some of our other spotted exotics that you could mistake an axis
Yeah.
for?
So, you know, it's first we'll kind of dive into fallow. You know, there's different species of fallow, and when you think about a fallow, you think of, you know, a medium sized animal, and he's got these big hands, these big palmations at the top of his horns. That's what really distinguishes a fallow, but there's different colors. So first there's two different I guess subspecies you could call it. There's the European or the northern fallow, and then there's the eastern, which is the Persian fallow. And the colors, there's multiple different colors that you could find them in. You could find them in a solid white color. You could find them in kind of a more cream color with some white, brighter white spots, solid brown, a chocolate brown, or you could get the brown spotted, which to the untrained eye, like you were saying, could easily be mistaken. You know, a young fallow could easily be mistaken for an axis because the younger ones don't have that palmation at the top of their horns or their antlers. I'm sorry. They, you know, that hasn't formed yet, and to the untrained eye, it could easily look like an axis, as well as I do have a picture here, as well as a, I guess I share my screen. Oh,
yeah,
Maybe I was gonna say, Carly, you may have to give him capability. But yeah, no, and fallow are one of those that you kind of think they're all completely, and I mean they kind of are different species, but yeah, they do come in lots of different flavors, if you want to call it that.
So here we have a Sika, and
Mhm.
can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So to somebody that just thinks, okay, it's an axis is a brown animal with white spots, well, that's what we're looking at here. But you can see the horns are much smaller. They're not swooping horns that are 3 feet, tall on some cases, and they're a little more fluffy around the belly region. There's a little more hair there. Axis are larger animals by nature, and they have much larger horns. But again, to the untrained eye, this could easily be mistaken for both a fallow and an axis.
And I think, and I don't know, I haven't looked at too many Sika. Do Sika have a stripe down their back?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, they do. I'll pull it back up. You can kind of see it here.
mm,
Okay.
It's not as defined as an axis, and on some fallow they have them too, on those brown fallow, the chocolate spotted fallow, and depending on age, it could be a lighter or darker um, brown coat. But they all three of them do have axis has a very prominent black stripe down its back, and fallow, it's there. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's kind of lighter, sometimes it blends across, kind of its, I guess you would say, backstrap region. But all three do have that black stripe. It's just how prominent it actually is. An axis is going to be a the same coat across the board as far as the brown color, and those white spots are going to be very defined and very prominent. As you can see here, these are kind of faded. They kind of sometimes blend together. It's not, in the sunlight, it won't really show as spots. But there's no question about when you see an axis deer, he's got white spots on his side. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
do all Sika have spots, or can they be a mostly solid color?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple different I guess breeds. They're all Sika, but different regions of Sika, much similar to a
Kind of like
fallow.
the
You
fallow.
have eastern and northern fallow. You can have a Dybowski or a Japanese Sika. It doesn't really matter the region, whatever you want to call it. You can find a, a spotted, chocolate spotted one like this, or you could find just a solid chocolate one.
Mm.
Sika, same as fallow. It doesn't really matter if it's a eastern or a northern fallow. You can find them in various colors, and I don't know that to my knowledge, I don't know that you can even predict what they are. As far as I know, you could have two white fallow and come out with a chocolate fallow. I mean, there's no guessing it. They're just wild animals that, unless somebody's doing some AI things, which I know there are some people in the industry that are doing, you're just going to get what you get when they breed.
Well, and I don't know, I know one big thing with the axis that I've noticed is they have like the males first. So first off, yeah, you said they have really, really strong spots. And what I've noticed with like you said, Sika or fallow, like they call them spotted, but they're not super strong defined
Yeah.
spots. And in certain lighting, they can kind of disappear. But I think another thing with axis that I've noticed is they have a fairly like strong, like white throat patch
Yep.
Mhm.
too. I'm trying to think. I know the bucks do. I'm trying to think if the does.
The does
Well,
they
okay.
do have it, but you can really see it on the bucks because their neck is so much larger. I mean, even when the bucks shed their horns, um, you can really tell which one's a buck and which one's a doe just by the size of their body.
Mhm.
The bucks are anywhere from 150 to 250 pounds in the larger ones, and we've seen them recently when they're feeding well and eating a bunch of acorns. They're getting up 270, 280 pounds. Those does maybe 150 pounds tops.
Yeah.
So you can clearly see the difference in them, and a lot of it's in their neck and their rump region. You can tell how big these animals actually are.
Yeah, and I think axis kind of have this a weird body shape to them. They're kind of big, chunky animals that have kind of like short legs a little bit. They look a little
Yeah.
disproportionate.
Yeah.
They're not the most graceful looking animals, to be perfectly honest. For having this really majestic coat, they look a little goofy to me personally.
Like
Luke's
a
like,
barrel
I'm
of
not gonna be able to
biscuit.
look at an axis the same way ever
No,
again.
I'm not. I'm gonna have a different outlook on them. Every time I see them, I'm gonna think of Liz, thinking they look funky
Like,
now.
they do. I mean, compared to like our white-tailed deer that are just a little bit more sleeker, they just look like chunks, to be honest. But okay, so we've talked about axis, we've talked about fallow, talked about Sika. Let's talk about black buck.
Okay.
I love these guys. These guys are just the absolute cutest little things ever, I think.
So we'll pull up, hope y'all can see that.
Yes.
So we'll pull up this picture and, you know,
That's a good comparison.
off off the first look, you know, you can see how much smaller frame these animals are than, you know, even a whitetail, but they're probably one of the smallest, other than some of the species from Africa, which that's a long, dark road that we could go down. But as far as what's common here, you're gonna see that these are much smaller than pretty much everything else. Only the males have horns, and so looking at this picture, you see that you got one that's this one here on the right that's got a darker coat. Obviously, he's a male. They've got these beautiful spiral horns, but when they develop this darker coat, it's a mature male that is ready to breed. And that's how you're, and there's a lot of confusion and it's kind of a gray area on whether or not that's the alpha or whether or not it's a winter coat or what it may be. And that's not wrong. It could very well be an alpha, but there could be 4 to 5 of these in a herd of black buck, depending on how big your herd is. And all it's basically saying is, hey, I'm ready to breed. Like this is my color code, and it's neat because you can watch the progression of it. You know, you see it go from this light color here. Oh no.
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Yeah, sorry about that. So you see it go from this lighter coat here, and and you can see it change over time, and towards the end, right when it's ready to breed, it's going to look almost like a jet black color. So it's very neat, but they, you know, much smaller. They at most will weigh 110 pounds. And you can, they're interesting because they're plains animals. They're not going to be, for the most part, they're not going to be hiding out in thick brush. They're going to be out in grassy fields like this where they can run and leap and kind of have all this room to themselves. And they're community animals. They're going to hang out with, you know, 15 to 20 to 30 other black buck at a time. And you may only see 3 or 4 males in that group, and then you're going to go find another group that's got 3 or 4 males and another 20 does with them. But they are, I would say, probably one of the easiest animals to distinguish from others.
Yes.
Obviously, due to their small size and their horns. Black buck do not shed their horns. They grow with age, and you know what happens is the first couple years of their life, their horns are going to shoot up 14 to 16 inches immediately. It's going to be quick. And then after that, you might get 1 to 2 inches a year until, you know, what we'll say is a good size mature black buck is 22 to 24 inches. Very seldom they're out there, but very seldom do you see them bigger than that. But I guess the desire and what's sought after is how many curls are on their little their horn there.
I always heard that 5 curls was considered.
If you find one with 5, I'd like to see it.
See, and
pretty
that's me just
impressive.
that is just
No.
me not knowing. I was like, well, I feel like I heard the number 5 one time, but
Yeah, I mean that for sure. 5 would be the idea.
Luke's
But
like, if you ever see one, call me
Yeah, you let me
immediately.
know. And we've seen them, we have them, but those are definitely older bucks that have been around a while, and they're gonna kind of run the herd. Those are gonna be the alpha males, and then most times they're gonna be dark black, and they're gonna kind of be running their herd around, and they'll be the bossy ones, that, scaring off the little younger bucks. But 4 to 5 curls would be what I would say would be ideal. Those are the big mature males that are much often sought after.
And so, and I think both Axis and Black Buck are native to India. I know Axis are native to India. I think Black Buck are as well, but
Yes.
Axis more hang out in the thicker brush. You'll
Yeah.
find them where you'll pretty well find whitetail, but like you said, Black Buck are more of a plains
Yeah.
species.
That's right. Yeah, Axis are going to be hiding out in thicker stuff. They're not, I mean, you can catch them out in the open. They'll go out there and stretch their legs. But I know on the properties that we spend a lot of time on, they're gonna hide in the thick stuff, and they're not coming out for any reason. They get comfortable there. They bed there, and they're, as far as hunting goes, they're probably one of the most elusive species that you're gonna have to do it on their time. They're not coming out in the open, like we said, and they're a hard animal to just to observe, because they're smart and they have great sense of smell, they have great sense of hearing, and they're not gonna, as far, you could almost say they have bad trust issues, because they're gonna do things their own way.
Mhm.
So
So
if,
oh, go
oh,
ahead, Carly. Go.
I
I
was gonna
was
say,
gonna, go ahead.
um, so if, I guess if you've got a piece of property that you're hunting on and it's a low fence, and because around here in the hill country, we see a lot of hunters, they do get access and things like that, and maybe some hunters see them a lot, not necessarily harvesting them. Are those people just kind of getting lucky that they saw one, or I don't know, what's your opinion on that?
Yes and no. I think it's regional. If you
Sure.
go closer to, we'll say, like a College Station or a Houston, yeah, you're getting lucky if you see an
Yeah.
access there. But over here where we're at, we'll call it the Kerrville area, we'll call it the Rock Springs area, or a Junction. They're even Fredericksburg, a Canyon Lake. You go to the south side of the lake, you're going to see more access than you are whitetail, I feel like. They're they've kind of just taken over, and they are almost categorized as an invasive species, where they do take over, and it's not so uncommon to see them. You're going to see more does than you are males, but I know, for me, driving home from the office every day, I see at least 1 or 2 axis bucks just standing on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So I guess let's dive into maybe some of the, I'll call it like categorized, like maybe some of the second most common exotics that you're gonna see. So probably Axis black buck being like the two big ones, with Sika, fallow potentially getting confused. But what are some of the ones that pretty common but not quite as common and
Sure.
numerous?
Yeah, so let's take a look at oryx. This is a scimitar oryx, and they're very distinguishable. They have huge bodies, and they've got these orange, light brown necks with these huge swooping horns. Now, the confusion is that only males have horns. That is not the case for oryx. Both the bulls and the cows have horns. Now you can slightly distinguish the two of them, or between the two. The cows are going to have longer, thinner horns, with a little bit smaller necks, as you can see here, and the bulls are going to have shorter, more heavy horns, that, again, they don't shed, they grow with age, much like black buck. And the males are going to have thicker necks. So obviously looking at this picture, these are much larger animals than even an axis or a fallow. They kind of resemble a small cow. They're just very large, 300 to 500 pounds. I know we have quite a few of them that are out at our place, and some of these big heavy bulls can be upwards of 500 pounds, and they're just beautiful animals that they move slow. They kind of take up their own space, and for the most part, they're going to be a plains type animal too. They don't jump. They don't really tear a whole lot up. They're pretty calm animals, but they take up a lot of space. They're big and they roam a lot. As far as they go, they can cover a lot of ground very quickly, but it doesn't look that way. You look up and they're standing in one spot, and you start looking around and you look back over and they're 1,000 yards away, but they really haven't traveled all that fast. They just walked over there. They're just big animals that move very quickly. These are going to be the most common oryx that people will see over in the hill country. Now, they will sometimes get confused because there's multiple other species of oryx, but the other two kind of least common would be the Gemsbok, which is still an oryx, that's an African species, and the Simbok, which is as an oryx as well. But it would be a cross between the scimitar oryx that we're looking at now and the Gemsbok.
And I didn't know that Simbox were like a thing, and then somebody was like, "Oh yeah," and I
Yeah,
was like, "Oh," I didn't even know, like, and I thought it was just kind of like a weird, like, just a weird random occurrence. But then I found out that like it's a little bit more common
yeah,
than you think. I didn't realize there's like I'll say a market
yeah,
for
Yeah.
them. No
Well,
yeah,
idea.
they're
absolutely.
also very delicious. So
Oh, add it to my list. I'll add it
They
yes,
to my
are.
ever
add it to the
expanding list.
list.
They are.
I
And
was gonna
and
say
they're
at the end we'll have to rank the most delicious, like the
Oh
top like
yeah,
5 animals that people must try.
absolutely.
okay. Okay, I'll let that
Based,
one brew in the back of my head while we're
okay,
chatting.
okay, no pressure whatsoever. You won't no, try not to offend anybody, Luke.
Okay, I'll do my best. But going back to these, you can see here they have kind of a little black spot over their eyes and the darker spot on their nose. That's pretty prominent in all the oryx species, aside from the Arabian oryx. Arabian oryx is just white.
Mm.
Uh, but the Ginsbuck and the Simbach, they have the painted, what people like to call the war face, where they have black around their eyes, and they're super, super pretty animals. The Ginsbuck being the largest, Simbach being between the scimitar oryx and the Ginsbuck as far as size goes. But those are more solid color. They don't have this painted neck. They just have the paint markings on their face.
And I always think Gemsbach, personally, I like the lookings on a Gemsbach more. It's more like it's very stark. It's like they have like mascara on and
Yeah.
they're this
Yeah.
like beautiful like sandy color. I don't know. I think this might be weird. I don't know, Carly, I want your opinion. I feel like a lot of women like the look of a Gemsbach a little bit more than like a scimitar. And guys seem to like the scimitars a little bit more than the Gemsbach. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just something I've kind of come
No,
across.
yeah, I could agree with that. For me, I like the look of them. And I hate to relate it like this because we're talking about hunting, but I like the look of them because they kind of remind me of like a really neat color of a horse. Like you don't see.
Oh, yeah, it's like I don't know how to describe, like, Luke, how would you describe the color on a Gemsbach? It's like
It's
a
almost like a
rosy
gray color.
yeah, like a rosy gray color. Like depending
Yeah.
on the light, it almost has like a pink, I hate to call it a pinkish hue. It's a
Yeah,
weird,
I would
it's
If
stay
you're
away
a horse
from
person,
pink.
comment what that color is called.
I would stay away from pink because the Simbach is more like a tannish and it's got a pink hue to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a tan orange, but the younger ones kind of will resemble a pink hue. I would sway towards gray for Ginsbuck.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's
they
they
have
need,
kind of like a dun tone to them. I don't know.
yeah, that's probably, yeah,
I'm
if
over
you're
here
gonna,
like Googling them.
yeah, if you're gonna go like the horse world side of things, yeah, probably a dun is probably gonna be like your closest horse color.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I prefer a Gemsbach, but I do scimitars are also very pretty in their own right, and very
Yeah.
stocky animals overall.
They're heavy.
Um, yeah,
I'll tell
very
you that.
chunks. They look like little tanks. And I don't know, I've heard that Gemsbach are a little bit more on the temperamental side of things compared to, like you said, scimitars are a little bit more even-keeled, level-headed.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might be where they're, kind of the region they're from, and a lot of people don't know that the scimitar oryx were once endangered, and they were brought into Texas for conservation, and they've kind of made, you could say, a home here where they've been able to adapt to the environment and thrive. And now that we have so many of them that they do free roam in some places. And there's so many of them that now they've opened up to hunting, and they're a very sought after animal as far as large game goes. Um, but they're definitely, the scimitar oryx are definitely a more calm temperament. The Ginsbuck are, and you can kind of tell looking at them. The Ginsbuck are more muscular. They have a more defined, like triangular front shoulder. They look like they're big, strong, beefy, running type antelope. And they do have a little bit more of a temper. They're yeah. We'll just leave it there.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah,
And,
they have a little bit more temper behind them, and a little more personality, you could say.
and I think Gemsbucks are the ones that you can go hunt them in New Mexico in White Sands.
Oh.
I believe that is
I,
correct.
I think that's correct. And I think there's actually a free ranging population of, I believe it's scimitar south of Alpine on a private ranch there. You can catch them if you're on your way down to Big Bend. You can catch them every now and again. I'm assuming they're still there. Whenever I went to college out there, we'd always look for them when we go down to Big Bend. I don't think I'm completely lying about that. If I am, y'all please feel free to like call me out in the comments, but it's also been a hot minute since I've been out to Alpine, so I'm probably wrong on that one. Okay, so are there any other, I'll say like second most common exotics?
Um, further west you go, out towards maybe Sonora, definitely in the more desert region, you're going to run into more aoudad. And those are very distinguishable to, those are, big brown ram type animals that, the first characteristic you see on them is you see their beard with the chaps running down their legs. And they're pretty hard to mistake, but they're also very hard to hunt and very hard to observe.
Yep. They're very they have really good eyesight.
Yes,
Like
yes, they do.
really, really good eyesight. From what I've heard from people is you don't think they see you, but they know you're there.
They
They're
know you're there and they can pick you up, and it's not, like deer, they see patterns, right? And they see shades. They don't see full color. But they can pick up your movement and your scent from miles away. An animal that does a lot of climbing, like a mountain goat, similar to that, they're going to live in the rocks. They're going to live on the hilltop sides and whatnot. So what they do is they get up high and they look across these plains or look across these fields, and they'll see you barely moving, and then they're gone. You'll never see them again.
Yep. I think the only other animal that you could get those guys confused with would potentially be our native sheep species, bighorn sheep, which
Yep.
you don't want to make that mistake. That is like a $60,000+
Yep.
mistake
Oh,
at
wow.
minimum. It's not a good day. Yeah, I've heard stories of people
Wow.
mistaking bighorn for aoudad.
It's pretty
Big
extensive,
Bighorn
but
has a season or no?
yes,
There
Oh,
is a
okay.
season, but it's extremely regulated.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Yes, yep.
And you can distinguish them pretty easily, side by side. Aoudad's going to be much larger. Bighorns are known for their large circumference horns that, they're big horned animals. But their body size is just a little bit smaller and they don't have the beard and the chaps like Aoudad do.
Yes, yeah, and I'd say the big horn wise is Aoudad. Both their horns curl, but Aoudad it's more of like a out to not
Out.
completely out
Yeah.
to the side, but more of like a back and out
Yeah.
versus Bighorn like Princess Leia from Star Wars. They kind of stick
Right. Yeah,
right by the head.
that's a great description of them, and it's a good point to remember that both the males and the females in Aoudad and a
Yes.
lot of rams are, the males are called rams and the females are called ewes. Both of them are horned animals. So the
Mhm.
way you tell the difference is the actual circumference of the horn at the base, and the males is going to be much larger circumference. And if you have a high-powered binocular or a spotting scope, you can see where the horns actually connect in the middle on top of their head.
Mhm.
On the ewes, there's a gap there, and it's small, but you can tell in the size of the base is going to be much smaller, and those horns they don't meet in the middle on top of their head. So it's a, other than that, they look exactly the same.
Mhm.
So it's a good point to kind of keep that in the back of your mind if you are hunting or just wanting to find a male or a ram aoudad, you want to be looking for the ones with the big bases that it looks like they're coming to a single point in the middle
And
on
they
top
hang
of
out in
their
some
head.
pretty large family groups.
Yes, yeah, they
Um,
do. The big mature males are going to venture off by themselves, but they'll always come back to that group. They're not necessarily hunting or doing anything. They just kind of roam, and they roam at their own pace, which is pretty quick.
I do like their chaps though. I think that is like the one of the coolest looking things is just like how beautiful their chaps are. And you get, especially when you get like a really mature ram that's got those really long, like that beautiful beard and those beautiful long chaps. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know, there's just something that's very majestic
yeah,
about
it's
about
definitely
it.
different. There's nothing, to my knowledge, not that I don't know that I've seen another one that looks anything like it.
Mm-mm. Nope. Um, okay. Was there another species out in West Texas or another secondary?
You could say that Nilgai, but those are going to be more South Texas and more West Texas. Those were originally brought in, and Nilgai they're called the blue ghost, is what the bulls are a dark gray color, a blue color is you would refer to them in horses, or the color of horses, you call it blue, and they were originally brought in during the Great Depression for farmers. It was just a different agriculture. They wanted to diversify their livestock and kind of shoot up cattle prices. They brought in, not for hunting, just for, hey, we're gonna fluctuate these cattle prices and bring these Nilgai in to just have something else to look at, basically. But the drive and the appeal for hunting them didn't really happen until the late 50s, early 60s. So again, another example of something that was brought in not for hunting. Much like the oryx, they were brought in for conservation. And nilgai were brought in for livestock purposes, for cattle prices. It was another revenue stream for cattle farmers to make a little bit extra money during the Great Depression.
And Nilgai are one of those, I feel like I'm bashing on all the exotics, but okay, of all the exotics, I think Nilgai have the most interesting like shape
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. They have this huge muscular body and then this tiny head and these little tiny horns that maybe get to 8, 9 inches. It's just,
Yep.
there's a lot going on.
Yep. It,
But they're big animals that, again, a plains animal, they're going to cover a lot of ground. And they're they're hard to hunt as well.
I
They're very
think
smart.
they might rival Aoudad for eyesight. Like
Yeah,
from what I've heard with people is if they see you, it's done. Like
yeah,
they're gone. They're not hanging around. They're not going to ask questions. They're just absolutely in the next county by the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and you're gonna
Mhm.
find a lot of those, down towards, you could call the King Ranch area, you could call, I forget what the name of that other ranch is down there, but those big South Texas ranches, you're gonna find almost, I don't want to say native, but now their own populations down there where they've kind of taken over and thrived down there for centuries. They do very well in that environment. And again, they cover a lot of ground very quickly, and they probably aren't the most calm animal. I will say that.
And they're one of those that I think they're pretty limited, definitely by temperature. I don't know if they really have them in the hill country. If they do, they're not super. I think there are a few places I've heard that do have them in the hill country, but they're not super cold
Yeah,
tolerant.
they can survive here in the hill country, and they do okay, but they're definitely going to thrive more in that southern region where it's thick cactus and thick, short brush, not super, trees and high in vegetation. It's going to be sand, it's going to be cactus, and that's kind of going to be their environment.
Mhm.
That's what they've thrived in for the last, call it 50, 60 years.
Mhm. Well, we're at the 1 o'clock hour.
Okay.
So I know like we always say we could keep talking. I know Luke had mentioned it when we started that you could dive down a hole like
I
African.
could go.
And I know we just like skimmed the surface, so maybe we'll do like a part two, like sometime next year. If you've decided that Carly and I are not completely crazy and you want to come back, we'll do like a part two of the more, I'll say the obscure, maybe exotic
Yeah,
ID.
absolutely.
Um, but we're okay, we have to ask the question now. What are your favorite eating? Give me like some of your favorite, okay, Axis, I'm assuming is probably one of them. I have yet to meet anyone that doesn't like Axis.
Yeah, across the board, pretty much everybody's going to say that Axis is one of the best, and they're not wrong by that.
Oh, I have a feeling you're about to say something like very,
Controversial.
very controversial here because you're like,
I
bah.
can. I mean, y'all tell me which direction you want me to go.
Your
I
own.
could I could ruffle some feathers here. But no, Axis are definitely one of the most sought after, obviously just because of their looks, but the meat is top of the line. As far as some other fan favorites, we'll call it. Scimitar Oryx is very good. Elk is phenomenal. Um, they're not super exotic here. They are here, but a lot of people go up to Colorado, Montana. They go up.
They're they're one of those ones that irks me slightly that they're considered an exotic here in Texas. The only
Yeah,
reason they're considered an exotic is because the subspecies we had here is completely extinct. They brought
yeah.
in, I believe it was like Roosevelt's.
Roosevelt's, yeah.
Yeah. And so because they're Roosevelt's elk, they're not technically true natives. But same thing goes for the bighorn sheep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a we're gonna stop. I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna get off my horse.
Time for
So
that.
I'll just give a quick little deal. I'll say probably Axis. I would go to elk after that. The argument could be made for Oryx or Red Stag. Red Stag is very good. I'm gonna round out the top five with we'll say pronghorn, which
Oh, I
is
do
which is a
like some.
gray area
I
because
like pronghorn.
it's hit and miss. A lot of people, I know a lot of people that have gone up and hunted them, and they're like, that's the worst meat ever. But it's all about how you handle your game too, which is something that we kind of preach on to a lot of our hunters. Is like, hey guys, you can't just dump this in a cooler of ice and let it sit there for 5 days. You have to, the idea is not to let it get super wet. It wants to be in a cold, dry environment, and that's when kind of absorbing a lot of the flavor, but not, draining it out of the drain hole on the ice chest. Now, yes, you want it to bleed out and you want it to get the gamey taste out of it, but you don't want to bleed out a lot of the flavor. I will say this, my more controversial, which I'm gonna see some comments on this. It's gonna show up, and I'm gonna catch heat for it. But I'm gonna go number one is probably zebra.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
I have not heard that one. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily surprise me because I know, okay, I realize other countries people eat horse.
We're
I
gonna
mean,
catch comments for it.
a zebra is a
Drop it
horse.
below.
I would not be against trying zebra, but yeah, with the pronghorn, I feel like especially if you have really sensitive palate and depending upon where you shoot it, some people don't. They can taste a little sagey to some people,
Yeah.
which I guess is maybe that gaminess. But I've never had an issue. I always liked pronghorn.
Yeah,
I
I
always
think it's
loved
great.
it. It was delicious,
I think
absolutely
it's great.
delicious. But yeah, no, zebra. I'm gonna have to try me some zebra at
Yeah.
some point. Where I'm gonna get it, I don't know, but I will find me some zebra.
Well, you can contact Omega Outfitters. We do we do them.
Shameless plug.
No, we
Shameless plug.
I had to drop that in there somewhere. No, we do have some guys that come out, and we've only done one, which it was kind of sad because they are majestic, right? You think of a zebra and you're like, man, it's a beautiful animal, but it's different. But when we got the opportunity to like take a little bit of the meat and try it, that it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it one bit. And zebras are mean.
They are, yeah.
Okay, I might catch heat for this too, but if it makes you feel better, I think zebras are mean.
There's no thinking. They are mean.
They are very mean. They are
Yeah.
very, very mean from what I've heard. Yeah. But well, Luke, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully y'all learned a little bit about identification. And if y'all liked this one, want to hear some more about dive a little bit further into some exotic ID, let us know. But yeah, we hope y'all had a great Thanksgiving, I guess, first off. And thanks all for joining us today.
Yep.
We'll
Thank you all for having me on. I
y'all
appreciate
later.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, let me find the button. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.